This Monday, the magic number is 57. 57 days to go until the American people elect the 47th President of the United States. This is the warning. Among the president's duties is commander-in-chief of the most potent nuclear arsenal in the world. This is a ballistic missile submarine. It is the most powerful weapon ever conceived by the mind of man, and it operates under the orders of the commander-in-chief. Will it be this man?
When I say Dr. Hannibal Lecter, the press says, oh, why did he mention that? They're wise guys back there, just wise guys. They say he rambled and started talking about Hannibal Lecter. What does that have to do? That's a representative of people that are coming into our country. Dr. Hannibal Lecter, he will have you for dinner. You know that? He will have you for dinner.
Now I have a question. If the captain of the submarine got on the intercom and addressed the crew and said exactly that, what do you think would happen to the captain? But the question before us is, have we arrived at the hour where a majority of the country, for whatever depravity, is ready to commit national suicide? Are we ready to topple over like a giant Jenga tower? Before we talk about the very dangerous, let's talk about the predicates to it, the insanities, the willingness to believe utter nonsense, and the susceptibility to it. Now, the people who believe this idiocy, certainly they're gullible, but let's not pretend that the broken American media hasn't conditioned them to somehow believe this preposterousness could be true. Now, think and use your heads about what Donald Trump is saying. Now, I have kids that go to school and that have been in high school during these years when every parent every day wonders if today is the day the evil touches my school. Is today the day when a lunatic or an evil person comes into contact with a military-style assault weapon? A high-capacity clip on a high-velocity weapon that should be used on a battlefield, instead being used on 10-year-olds. In fact, the one thing that you can never lose money on is betting when the next school shooting will be. It's coming. I want to show the ridiculousness of something. And it's this idea that Donald Trump is connected in any way, shape, or form to any normal person's life. Here's how Donald Trump thinks you live, peasant, as you go out to get your daily loaf of bread. But whereas you were a happy peasant, I suppose, back in the days, able to get your bread, free from being shot, stabbed, marauded, violated on the streets, now, as you leave your wherever to get your bread, well, let's watch Donald say it.
To me, the number one thing that I get spoken to by the people, and I meet so many people, is crime. I mean, they can't believe it. They can't walk out of their apartments and buy a loaf of bread without getting mugged or rapped or shot.
Now, for the record, this is Donald's daughter-in-law. Does she look like she goes out for the bread every day, facing the marauding people, brown and black people, that we got to get out of the country so we can be safe like it is in Caracas? What Donald Trump is putting forward is an idea that's demented, but also deeply dangerous. And it's that he can't lose the election because if he does, it's evidence of a vast conspiracy of fraud. That's what he's selling. That's the policy debate. So let's talk policy. Let's start by listening to Donald Trump explain basic economics, tariffs.
We're going to be a tariff nation. It's not going to be a cost to you. It's going to be a cost to another country.
So there is a narrative taking hold, pushed by the media, unhappy that Kamala Harris rejects completely the absurd notion that any of these news organizations have any utility or any moral standing in the name of the public good to ask questions for us, as opposed to having a transaction with them that works for her so she can be elected against him, who's a threat to all of us, so she can change the page and move this country forward. And the media in the country, over and over again, has normalized a cause and a movement that's infested with, for example, Nazis, Tucker Carlson sitting down with a Hitler apologist, a man who attacks Winston Churchill and denies the Holocaust. This is in the open now. It's clear as day. And what's clear as day is Trump is laying the groundwork again to say that unless I win, the election has been stolen. Let's watch.
These people cheat. They cheat like hell. If we can keep it down to a minimum, we win easily. Watch for the voter fraud, because we win. Without voter fraud, we win so easily.
So the media has taken now to saying that what are the policies of the vice president? We have to have a policy debate, as if Trump is a man who comes to the American people with a book full of thought out policies. It is absurd. In fact, it's obscene. The man who said Mexico will pay for the wall that was never built, but that pretends it is, that's the policy. Here's a policy difference. For the first time in American history, because of Donald Trump, a group of Americans, more than half the population by a smidge, women, have lost a constitutional right that they had. It's been taken away from them because of Donald Trump, their reproductive health care rights. And Donald Trump stands for the proposition that he has the power to decide if America's women get birth control or America's couples have access to in vitro fertilization. Donald Trump stands for the proposition, along with his weirdo running mate, J.D. Vance, that the government, that J.D. Vance should be with you in the gynecological exam room, should be with you in the labor delivery room, should be with you in the confessional, should be with you in the psychiatrist's office, should be with you at every moment in your life when you thought you should be free to be private. Not anymore. That's Trump. That's Trumpism. That's policy. Do you know what another policy is? A lot of times the media gets confused about campaign promises. We only ask our presidents to make one promise. It is to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. And Donald Trump broke that because he refused to cede power when he lost an election that's prescribed in the Constitution. He tried to overthrow the government. He tried to disrupt the constitutionally mandated proceedings on January 6th to install himself as some type of dictator. Understand something. When a politician makes the types of threats that Trump makes, of violence, of imprisoning people, of retribution and revenge, there has never, ever, ever been anybody who's made those threats who, upon taking power, hasn't followed through. Preserve, protect, and defend. That's a policy debate. Donald Trump spent more money faster than any president in the history of the country, beggaring the country. That's policy position. Donald Trump said he wants Russia to invade our NATO allies. Donald Trump said he would withdraw from NATO. That's policy position because it brings us much closer to World War III. The fact of the matter is he's a con man and he's a demagogue and he's a president who is faithless to his oath and to the country. He's a man of violence and mayhem. And now Kamala Harris must face him. And this is important. This isn't a policy debate. It's a character test. The closest we will all ever get to see how Vice President Harris operates in a room is how she faces down on a set an adjudicated rapist and a convicted felon, the greatest bully of our age, a malignant clown, a poisonous narcissist. What will she do? Now, she can look fearful and afraid, but that won't happen. What she's going to do is laugh at him and disdain him. What she's going to do is shine a light on him. This isn't the first rapist that Kamala Harris has been in a room with. She's a prosecutor, and she's quick on her feet, and she has a test. And the test is, we want to see what it looks like when she's got to sit across from President Xi or maybe President Putin. The world is very dangerous, and Trump's a bad man in a world filled with them. And this is the moment when the American people get to see a bit of the character of the woman who is the highest ranking American woman in the history of the country. Only an entitled, privileged, spoiled, trust fund kid like Trump would have the audacity to demean that achievement. He does it because of his insecurity. He knows that everything in life, from his degree at Penn to his business, has been handed to him, that he's had a net underneath. And despite all of it, he couldn't help f it up. every single time. Yet he was able to rise and make his disasters the nation's disasters. And because of the weakness and the cowardice and the fecklessness of men like Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and all the cast of characters who laid on their backs and showed Trump their bellies, America is saddled with this idiocy that can only be beaten at the ballot box, can only be repudiated there. And so my advice for Vice President Harris is to get a good night's sleep. If your advisors have tried to program you with lines, drop them immediately. The test is not one of cleverness. It's not one of sound bites. It's one of steeliness and grit. And looking at this pig from 3 feet away and not blinking and laughing at his ludicrousness, asking him maybe what's wrong with him? What's his malfunction? Looking at him and saying, what are you talking about when he talks about the golden age of Trump? He was the worst president in the history of the country who collapsed the economy and mishandled a pandemic, killing unnecessarily hundreds of thousands of people. The good old days? The world is teeming with violence and menace, and it didn't start bubbling during the Biden administration. It was the consequence of 4 years of Trump and the belief that he was coming back. The fact of the matter is, this is a very close race. Kamala Harris is ahead. This will be the most watched event in political history. The American people care about this election. The media says it's a razor's edge, that the American people can't tell the difference between a lie and the truth. The American people can't tell the difference between good and bad, between sane and insane. I think all that's bullshit. As these candidates get ready to face off, there is only one of them that will keep the faith and keep the oath and maintain the American way of life. That's what the debate is about. Success at the debate is making sure the debate is about the big things, about the future, and the obstacle that stands in the way to reaching it. That obstacle has a name, Donald Trump. That name has a cause, MAGA. And MAGA has a faith, fascism. It's an evil. And anytime you see any part of a political coalition that celebrates Adolf Hitler and venerates the Nazi cause and picks up pieces of their ideology and denies the Holocaust, you know that an evil has taken root. And the only thing a good American can do when faced with an evil that has taken root, dedicated to the spread of injustice, is stand opposed to it. Kamala Harris will stand alone on a debate stage, faced off against the leader of that fascist cause. And it doesn't matter what happens on that debate stage. What matters is what transpires behind it. And everybody in America who cares about freedom and justice and equality for all people and has the wisdom to appreciate taking it from one of us means the ability to strip it from all of us. All of those Americans who believe in our faith, our creed, our way of life, we have to stand at Vice President Harris's back, behind her, in support of her, to lift her up as the American president, not because we venerate her as the head of a cult of personality, not because we agree with her on every issue, but because Kamala Harris agrees with us on the great issue that America must always be a free nation where we, the people, pick our leaders and not the other way around. That's the warning. That's what's at stake. Trump wants to take your vote away. He wants to take your choices away. He wants to take as much as he can, not for you, not for your kids, but for his cause. His kids, his supporters, his faith, his MAGA fascist cause. He's not on your side. And if you think he is, you got rocks for brains. Smarten up. 57 days to go. The future of this country is very much on the line. I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning, and I invite you to subscribe on our Substack, on our YouTube channel. Follow us. Welcome to the community.